A rider crashes at low speed, checks her frame, and sees a visible dent exactly where she hit the ground. She knows what's wrong and rides home confident the bike just told her the truth. A few miles away, another rider crashes just as hard. His frame looks flawless, not a scratch. 3 weeks later, it snaps clean in half on a climb because the damage was there the whole time, just invisible. The industry's pitch is that newer always means better, but 7 specific, provable things still work better on a well-built vintage road bike than on anything in this year's catalog, and none of them are close calls. Subscribe to The Bike Truth because we're going through all 7 with the receipts.
Steel doesn't hide damage. When it takes a hard hit, it bends or dents, visibly, immediately, in a way that tells you exactly where to look and how bad it is. Carbon fiber doesn't fail like that. Bicycle law firms and frame inspectors who deal with this professionally describe carbon damage as frequently invisible from the outside, hidden inside the layup as delamination, cracked fibers, or a bond failure around a joint, all of it sitting quietly under a coat of paint that looks completely fine. Research groups studying this have found that riders routinely underestimate exactly this risk, trusting a clean-looking frame that a proper inspection would have flagged immediately. When carbon does eventually give up, it doesn't bend.
It shatters all at once, often with no warning beyond a bike that looked perfectly rideable the day before. A material that tells you the truth about its own condition isn't a downgrade. It's the single most useful safety feature a frame can have, and it's one steel never lost. That doesn't mean carbon is unsafe by design. Most riders finish a carbon bike's entire lifespan without ever needing to worry about this. It means the one moment you'd most want a clear answer, right after something's gone wrong, is exactly the moment steel gives you one, and carbon sometimes doesn't.
Bike fit isn't something you nail on the first try, and a quill stem was built around that reality. Loosen one bolt, slide the whole assembly up or down within a marked safety range, retighten, done. No new parts required. A modern threadless setup locks that decision in at the point of sale. The steer tube gets cut to a specific length when the bike is built, spacers get stacked above or below the stem, and once you're at the top of that stack, going any higher isn't an adjustment anymore. It's a shopping trip for a new stem, and sometimes a new steerer entirely. One system assumes you'll get your fit right eventually. The other assumes you already have. That difference matters more than it sounds, because bike fit genuinely does change, with flexibility, with age, with months spent building a new position. A rider on a quill stem can chase that shifting target for free, indefinitely. A rider on a threadless setup pays for every correction, one new part at a time.
Look underneath an old steel frame and you'll usually find small threaded eyelets on the fork and dropouts, brazed on at the factory specifically for fenders and racks. Look under most of this year's race-inspired road bikes and you'll often find nothing at all, sometimes not even enough tire clearance to fit a fender over the tire you already have. That's not an oversight. It's a direct trade-off for aerodynamics and weight that quietly assumes nobody buying this bike will ever need to carry groceries, commute in the rain, or bolt on a rack. A bike that can't be adapted for real life outside of racing isn't more advanced, it's more specialized, and most owners never asked for that specialization. Riders who want fenders or a rack on a modern frame often end up improvising with clamp-on brackets never designed for the job, fighting for scraps of clearance the frame was never built to spare in the first place, just to do something a bike from decades ago handled without a second thought.
A threaded bottom bracket from 4 decades ago uses the same tooling a shop needs today because that standard never actually changed. Compare that to the current landscape of bottom bracket shells alone, where half a dozen incompatible proprietary standards have come and gone in barely 15 years, each one tied to specific manufacturers who may or may not still support it. An old, boring universal standard isn't a bike that got left behind. It's a bike that never signed up for a subscription it could eventually get cut off from. Every one of those newer standards launched with a genuine engineering justification behind it. Most of them still ended up abandoned within a decade, which means the riders who bought in early are the ones now hunting for parts nobody makes anymore.
A traditional wheel, built with a standard spoke count around a standard hub, can be trued, rebuilt, or repaired by hand by any competent mechanic anywhere on Earth, using tools that have barely changed in a century. Plenty of modern aero wheel sets use low spoke counts and proprietary rim profiles specifically engineered for that one wheel, which means a damaged spoke or a cracked rim can mean waiting on a specific part from a specific manufacturer instead of a 5-minute fix at whatever shop happens to be nearby. Fewer spokes and a tighter tolerance genuinely do shave grams and cut drag, and for a rider racing at the sharp end of a field, that trade-off is a real one worth making. For a rider who just wants a wheel that gets fixed the same week it breaks, it's a trade-off working against them instead of for them. A well-kept steel frame from a respected builder decades ago routinely holds its value or climbs in price on the secondhand market because the supply is fixed and the demand keeps finding it. A new carbon race bike, by contrast, is well known for shedding a large share of its price the moment a newer model replaces it, often within a single product cycle. One of these is an asset, the other is closer to a subscription you paid for up front. That gap isn't really about nostalgia driving up demand for old steel. It's supply and demand behaving normally. Nobody's manufacturing more of a specific frame from a builder who closed shop 30 years ago, while next year's carbon flagship is only ever one press release away from making this year's model look outdated.
A stretched cable, a dragging derailleur, a creaking pedal. All of it sits well within reach of a rider with a basic toolkit and 20 minutes. None of it requires a diagnostic app, a proprietary connector, or a trip to a shop that stocks one specific brand's spare electronics. The simplicity that made old bikes easy to maintain was never really about being unsophisticated. It was about staying entirely inside the reach of the person who actually owns the bike. That reach is shrinking on newer bikes for a real reason, not a careless one. Tighter tolerances and integrated systems genuinely do buy real performance. But every bit of that performance comes with a small, quiet tax paid later, in wait times, in diagnostic fees, in jobs a rider used to be able to do themselves and now simply can't.
None of this means modern bikes are worse, because plenty of what they've genuinely improved is real and worth having, from braking performance to raw aerodynamic speed to comfort on rough roads. But 7 specific, provable things quietly got lost along the way while all of that was being gained, and none of them were lost because the old solution stopped working. They got lost because nobody in the industry was rewarded for keeping something simple enough to still work exactly like this decades on. And a rider who wants all 7 back has to go looking for a bike built before anyone decided that simplicity wasn't worth selling anymore.